And we are possibly yes, we're back. Oh, we're back. I'm in a little sandwich of real smart people. We're back to talk about guided installation. So if you want to talk about stuff for new users of New Relic, this is for the new. This is for the day one users of New Relic that we're doing some improvements. We've got Justin. Justin, say hi to the people.
Very interested in hearing this one.
Yeah, hi to the people. So,
Justin, what do you do for New Relic?
I am a software engineer at New Relic. I am on the team that's primarily focused on this guided install experience. We sit atop kind of the intersection of all the different agents, and we are kind of that last barrier between the experience for the user and making all their data get into New Relic. So that's what we do.
So we had a great question, about like how do you get started with New Relic, and thankfully, Project Aerostribe, I'm gonna guess. Project Steve says, that this is exactly what they're interested in. That's fantastic, yeah, because we want to make this like as smooth as possible. The upshot is, right, actually using New Relic, installing it on new services is extremely easy. It doesn't require as many open source libraries do, like going in and saying, I'm starting a method now, go report this up, like go send the data up to our server, right? It should be this very easy process, but we have a lot of tools in a lot of places, right? So we want to make sure this is a little bit clear, as smooth as possible for users. So yeah, Justin, I'll let you take it away.
All right, cool. So I've started, like the screen that you see here on the right is a fresh account. So I just created a brand new account. And when you're dropping to New Relic, now you're going to basically see this New Relic guided install pane that's going to pop up. And so you can see here on the right, it's basically saying choose your environment. And so we're breaking that out by either like the host OS, or we're saying if you're using containers for Docker or Kubernetes, you can click on those. And so this is kind of that first step. We're going to try to help you get data into New Relic. And so actually, I guess I could back up a step here. So we also have monitor applications. If you're looking for APM in particular, you can click through these, and they're all going to do their own thing as well. I'm going to focus on guided install for the purposes of what we're doing here. And so what I have running here in the background is just an EC2 instance that has a few different services running on it. And so we're going to step through this experience and kind of see how we can start getting data into New Relic in a hurry. So this is a Linux
instance, just for people from home. That's a virtual machine, just like any other virtual machine you might be running. In this case, right, this is one running on the AWS cloud, right? You can run them for free. If you don't know how, hit me up on Twitter. We'll go through a guidance on that one. But yeah, it's just sort of, for a lot of us, it's the gray forward focus of kind of the most standard way you might be running a virtual machine in the cloud. Anyway, let's go.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to click on Linux. And so the first thing you're presented with here is it's saying copy and run this command. And so this command might look like there's a lot going on there, a lot of scary things. We're going to break it down a little bit. I'm going to start this because it does take a few minutes for data to start populating and for the install to run. So I'm going to start that, and then we'll kind of like break down the command. So I'm going to copy this. I hop over to the box, and I'm just going to paste this in.
I just realized what's happening here, at least in Maine, is like, for the whole time I've worked with New Relic, question one was, what kind of app are you running, right? And we got asked that like in a web page someplace, and it was like, okay, I'll take you to different instructions depending on what you're running. Yeah. But this is not that. This just said, hey, what kind of server do you have? And this isn't just server. Yes. We're gonna actually monitor like the software on the server.
Yeah.
Hey.
So this is where that whole guided install thing comes into play, right? And so we're doing some amount of analysis, some amount of processing on the host to try to figure out and do some kind of magical experience things for the user, I would say. And so you can even see, if I would have been better at presenting this, I would have shown that as soon as I pasted and pressed enter on this, the UI in the background starts to update right away. And now is noticing that there's an installation that's in progress. So we're doing some trickiness there to like make that communication happen because we are like executing on a host, but our UI is updating dynamically. So it's a pretty neat kind of background thing that's going on there.
Yeah.
But so we get to a point where we say, Yeah.
The stage one improvement of this, I remember seeing like when I came back to New Relic in 2020, was like we would start to have these things where it's like, hey, the agent just got successfully installed, and it would show it on the page like right away, which was very neat. But this is like next level because it's like, hey, you're midway through the install process now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
exactly.
Go on. This is cool shit.
No, that's totally fine. Questions are totally great. So what this did is it installed the new Relic CLI, and then initially it's going to kind of do some different process detection and say, hey, I noticed that you've got a Java process, you've got MySQL D process, and Nginx, Redis. And so it detects all those things and knows that we have corresponding integrations that we can set up for all those different processes that you're running on your host. And so now we're giving the choice to do a selection. So I'm going to just deselect all of these for the sake of time and say, I'm going to let the infrastructure agent and the logs integration go ahead and fly through, and we're gonna start it with that. So now I press enter.
In theory, Justin, could I also run this on my local machine to find out what services I've installed and then forgotten to uninstall when I've been trying out different things? I'm pretty sure I've like homebrew installed like every database out there at some point for a demo, and they're probably all still running, and that's why my machine is like so clogged up.
That's interesting. I don't think that's the primary use case.
Will installing this agent take the place of a simple top command? Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is more so. So I'll kind of get into this, I guess, a little bit right now, because this checking for data might take 1 minute or take like 5 minutes. It just depends on kind of the processing pipeline. So what's really behind all of this is we have an open source repo called Open Install Library. And this is a collection of what we're calling recipes that actually represent the individual components and integrations that we're setting up on your host. And so like, that list I got presented, it said, I'm going to do logs, or I'm going to do Redis or MySQL. The actual commands that are being executed behind that kind of veneer of experience that we've created, you can find those down inside of here. And so, like, to your point, Aaron, you're saying, like, can I figure out which processes are running, or maybe I forgot about, what we're really doing is saying, hey, we're going to take the processes that are on this host, then we're going to see against our library of things that we can support what matches, and then we're going to basically pull that down to pull that response down onto the host and say, here's what we can set up given what we've written so far. So this is going to expand and grow over time. That's the intent of the library being what it is. But that's kind of this is really kind of the secret sauce behind that veil of just one line command that's being run. So
I like this. Like this. Yeah, it's really neat that we get to have some insight into how this is working and kind of what logic it's using. It seems like this is going to be really powerful. I mean, of course, we love it for new users, for people who are sort of just setting up their instances, but I also really like it as maybe you're happy with New Relic, you're using it on, and maybe your team is using it, but you kind of want to socialize it out to the rest of your org. And you say, hey, just run this on a couple of your hosts to get a sense of what's running that it can monitor, and what data are you going to get back.
Yeah, for sure. So we can see that it was able to set up the infrastructure agent. So it did checking for data and had a success. And then it gives us a little bit of output here as far as this is where the file that we configured is going to sit. And then we have even a link to the docs if you want to configure some, because the infrastructure agent has a ton of options of things that it can do and can kind of pick up. And so we've just configured some sensible defaults. We enabled process monitoring. This is saying that it's a success. And so even back here in the UI, we know now the infrastructure agent has been installed. And then it's just going to continue down through the pipeline of all those other things to install. So it's saying, do I want to install logs? And then it gives me some sensible defaults. And so it's saying bar log messages, bar log cloud init, bar log secure. I'm just going to say, sure, I want those three things. I hit enter. This is wrapping a little funny right now because it's so compressed.
We're zoomed in the hands.
Yeah. Yep.
No one has to apologize for how your CLI output, word wraps.
Yeah. So now it's doing the same thing.
You're on streaming font size.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. Yeah. Yep. And so now we can see the UI is kind of giving an indicator that we're checking for something, as is the CLI. And basically, this is just behind the scenes. We've started to take data into the data platform, and now we're doing a check. And so those are the only two things I wanted to set up. And now this spits out. We've got some different APM recommendations based on the processes that we're running. Everything is complete. I can jump back over here and see, I know that I skipped these 4 things, and I got the infra agent and the logs installed. And so now I can go and see my data. So if we jump from that into this is going to actually show us kind of a host overview of what we just set up. Let me just make this full screen, maybe be a little bit of a better view. And so I can see there's CPU, memory, like all the things that are kind of endemic of an infra agent install. I can see that data started to roll in, and it gives me a nice little overview. I can see these are all the processes that are running on my machine. Those are being picked up because that process monitoring was enabled. So this is kind of a good first experience. Like, that didn't take too long. It takes a few minutes once the data has been validated that it's there, and then I've got the infra agent set up and ready to go, and I've got logs set up and ready to go as well. If I would jump into like the logs view.
So if we had like a Rails app running on this host, like it would also offer to say, hey, do you want to monitor that as well? Is that right?
So I would say that's a coming thing. It's not necessarily like APM in general right now is a little bit less sophisticated than it's going to be eventually. So right now, like, this is showing me these data gaps over on the right, and it detected that there were Java processes and it detected that there were Python processes. That may not actually be accurate to you have a Java application or a Python application running. You might just have something running on that host. So it's a little bit of a simplistic view into how APM can be set up right now as far as a recommendation, but the goal is to make that better and smarter over time.
It'll still link you to those docs if you look at that and say, oh yeah, no, I mean, that's the main thing, because I'm running a Django app here, right? And so this will link you over to grab that stuff.
Yep, and even within here, if I click on this, I'm actually going to get that flyout, and this is going to tell me how I start to get APM going on my host. So this is again, like, if you're like, oh, APM is really what I was looking for, you click on this, and this is going to get you right to what you're needing. You can execute and kind of follow these steps and do the same thing that you need to do.
Love it. Justin, this is such a cool tool, and I definitely want people to go and try it out. I think I'm going to encourage, we may run a separate Twitch stream in a few weeks that just sort of, as we always do, say, hey, here's start to finish with a new Relic user and install, and we'll definitely come back to it. But is there other stuff you wanted to show us or stuff you want to plug?
Yeah, so there's one more thing I'll say with all this. So I skipped those 4 integrations early on. There was JMX, MySQL, Nginx, and Redis, and now they're showing as opportunities here, because I've got these other processes that are running on my host, but I'm not really instrumenting them and getting like the value out of that data that I could be. And so say, oh no, I really did want to instrument MySQL. Maybe I didn't do it because I don't know credentials ahead of time or whatever. And so now I know, okay, I have a user. That's the user I'm going to use to set up. And so I can click through to this, and this is now going to also, now I would say this is not something that we call a guided install. This is more of a targeted install. Right. The only difference being, instead of just running new Relic install, it's now giving a specific integration name that it's going to actually target and run as well. So if I, again, like kind of do the same little game that we did before, I come over here. Oh, that's not a word. And paste this. So this is going to go off and kind of do the same thing again.
Really like this, yeah.
And now I get to the point where we're trying to install MySQL. It gives me some helpful tips up front here as far as documentation is concerned, that this is the type of user you're going to need. So I'm just going to, I know that I have a user called New Relic. I got a super secret password. I can type it. I need a host name, I need a port, and then I need a database name. So those are kind of the required variables to get that integration up and running. And now it's installing the package. Now it's checking for data. And again, like the UI in the background is also doing the same exact thing with that kind of dynamic switching of the views that we had going on before. And then in theory, that again, this might take like a minute or two.
Well, only listings that were present whenever you ran that first guided install, or like if since you did the guided install, if I then went and installed like Redis or MongoDB, would it pick up that those had been installed as well and offer those in that same box? Or
yeah, it would not, because we're not running a daemon on the machine from the CLI, so you'd have to execute the CLI again, and then it would upon that next execution of that command path, it would then pick up, here's maybe something new. We're going to write that in the background to storage, and then we're going to be able to see that on the other end inside of the UI and have it recommended.
But there's
So yeah,
no
it's the
issue
same
with me
thing
running
here.
the CLI multiple times and going through the install
Nope.
if I know I've added new things.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, you're able to run that. That's kind of a core primitive. It was that we tried to make those recipes idempotent so that you were able to run them again and again, and there's no really adverse effects to your host. Yeah,
that is very solid work.
Yeah, that's a very
just,
important thing.
I think we should think about like how we're going to turn this into a presentation about like this is how software installs, like agent installs should be. Right? Like, you know, and because so many of the conversations I have with people, they say, you know, well, we installed it, we tried it out, and, you know, it turns out that they're like monitoring their SQL connections, but this thing is also running Redis and they have no indicator of that, right? They're like, well, the SQL install says it has plenty of memory. Like, that's actually a memory partition, right? It's not like, and just that is, it's such a tough conversation. Where you're just not, you know, it's like, oh, well, that, you know, we've been gathering data for 3 months, but it wasn't the data that we really wanted to be looking at. And obviously there's no way to go back, right? And go back in time and collect that old data.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I love this. Oh, thank you so much for giving us this tour. You know, when it's not guided install, I thought it was just sort of, you know, oh, you know, for Python, make sure you run this command. Like, this is really, really neat.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's a nice packaged experience. That was kind of the goal, is that we're trying to do some. I don't want to. I like try to refrain from saying magic and doing things automatically, but there is that aspect of this where
it has a good
trying
vibe,
to do some things to help you out and get you a good 5 minutes, you know, like intro experience with New Relic, and now you're able to see data. You're able to see data, and you're able to see value from that data because now it's in the platform. Now you can do, you know, you can query this, you can set up alerts, you can do synthetics, you can do all of those things that, like, you know, New Relic is really powerful for. And so this is that first experience where you just want to be able to get your data into New Relic, and then you can start to really unpack the value that you have from that data.
Sure. Is there anywhere somebody can go to see a list of the infrastructure integrations that the guided installer supports?
Yeah, it's a good. So yes, there is. If I go back to the home screen here. Sorry, there's like parts of my screen are covered with things right now. So if I hit add more data, I go to guided install. If I click on the C, it might not be from this place, is it? Is this to see the docs? Okay, so there is a docs page for this, and that's not the right one. That's why I was, sorry, a little confused there. So if I do guided install, I believe this should show up. Yes, right here.
Wow.
So yeah. This is our list of integrations that we have specifically built out in the guided install so far. And so they're like, over time, this list is going to adapt and expand. And like, so like one important note here is like Microsoft SQL Server is obviously in its current incantation is only a Windows thing. And so, so there's kind of an implicit, you're not going to be able to run that on Linux right now. Maybe at some point, if it like has like a Linux version, which I think they might already, I'm not sure, like the Microsoft is dipping into the Windows or like dipping into the Linux world. I'm not super well versed in all of that, but so most of these integrations are kind of with a bent towards Linux right now, but we are actively working to like create Windows friendly versions of those, and like where it's applicable, because you may not, you know, like you may run certain services and things from Windows, but others it might not make sense to. So yeah, but this is basically that list of integrations we've got going on right now.
That's a nice list. Like,
yeah,
that really covers pretty much like everything I use. So I'm happy already.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah, and like I said, like this obviously is an open source project. The New Relic CLI is also an open source project, and so there's obviously everything that comes with open source around those ideas. And if there's an integration that is not supported, and it's like, hey, maybe I would want to offer that up for support, we welcome PRs. So and so, you know, there's that side of things too, is that this is meant to be kind of our public facing way that all of these things work, and even along the lines of like, these are all the infrastructure agent installs. And so our team's hard at work, like crafting those and making them better, and like finding and detecting issues where they've arisen since we've launched, and making those things better and kind of more well built. But there's obviously like ample opportunity to also contribute, and also even just learn from like what we've done inside of here by analyzing a recipe and being able to see what does it take to actually to execute these things on a system and have it run and kind of just be that joyful experience rather than like, oh, it broke halfway through. Why did that happen? So yeah. So
you said the CLI itself is open source too.
Yep. Yeah. So this is the New Relic CLI repo. The New Relic CLI also does like that New Relic install command is just one sub command out of, I think, more than a dozen that the New Relic CLI is able to do and support. So the CLI is an awesome piece of open source tooling that helps you interact with our platform in a really great way. So there's a ton to check out from this repo, and just from, I think you just like launch into the CLI and you can type like a dash help and it shows you all the sub commands that you get from that. So
anybody watching who also has their own installer that has a bad experience, now you have no excuse. New Relic One is open source. You can go, you can clone it, you can use it yourself. So
yeah, for sure. So that's about what I had to show.
I love this. This is just fantastic. I'm just taking notes to make sure we talk about it in glowing terms on the blog. But I think that covers it well. Let's see people go and try it out. Do we have questions in Twitch that I missed as I was furiously taking notes?
So we have one saying they're using the Unix monitor plugin for Solaris server. Is there a forum they can discuss to get more insight on the data it pulls? Where should they go to talk about it?
Definitely post on developer.newrelic.com where we can look into it closely. But you can also just ping us on Twitter if you want to ask some questions and set up a time to talk to one of our solutions consultants, who I'm sure can take us through it. But yeah, developer.newrelic.com is a great place to get started. And yeah, I'm just going to type in that chat. Otherwise, let's go to Be Right Back and let's bring in our open source docs team that's waited so patiently to talk about it.